In this case, Ms. Kelly is correct. Santa was a white person. Does that matter? No, it doesn't matter. The spirit of Santa transcends all racial boundaries. It's a spirit based on generosity, kindness to children, and magical moments. All I want to do is keep the traditions of Christmas that make most Americans happy. The polls show 90% of Americans celebrate Christmas, and they want to call it a Christmas tree. You're in the minority, you're imposing your will, and you're making people unhappy. And
you're an atheist, you're a non-believer, and I respect that. That's fine. I don't look down on you. I don't think you're a pinhead.
Thank you.
If you want to be an atheist, that's why we have America. You can be it. But why are you messing around with my tradition? Why are you messing around with Christmas? Just leave it alone.
I mean, the fact is the war on Christmas is real, but Bill, it's a part of a larger war against Christianity that's being waged around the world. And
who do you think is behind the movement to diminish Christianity?
well, I think ultimately, Bill, as a Christian, I believe that it is the kingdom of darkness of Satan who from the beginning
But who does he use?
has been trying to extinguish. Oh, well, he uses misguided judges who have perverted the First Amendment. You know, now we have that the First Amendment ensures a freedom from religion. You have pastors who are out there saying there is no war against Christianity.
To most of you, Christmas means a variety of different things. I guess in the secular countries, for most people, it's just a holiday period in December where you get to eat a lot of rubbish and buy people presents. For Christians, you are celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. And if you're some right-wing evangelical in America, you're probably fighting the war on Christmas. Now, the war on Christmas has, of course, become a bit of a meme because of people like Bill O'Reilly and Fox News pushing this narrative that there is a war on Christianity on Christmas from the secularists in the US and in the world. But we're going to take a deep dive into the notion that Christmas and therefore Christianity is under attack in places like America and talk how it is being used by white nationalists. And I know that might seem silly, but of course Christmas does tie into the identity of Christians and a lot of Christian nationalists, so therefore it's not surprising they'll use this as a rallying cry to be like, look at the left trying to take away your religion, look at the other groups who aren't Christians in America and you don't want to offend them by saying Christmas and all this garbage. So we're going to get into it first by looking at Henry Ford and what he used to say about Christmas and Judaism in the 1920s. But before we go any further, if you like my content, please like the video, maybe subscribe to the channel, maybe share the video. If you want to support me financially, because a lot of my content is demonetized because I'm tackling edgier and more controversial topics, that link is in the description along with all my social medias, and come and join my Discord and my subreddit. So I said we're going to start with Henry Ford, the notorious anti-Semite, also the guy who ran the car company. But we're going to talk about how the war on Christmas has roots with the publication he used to own and the column he used to write in this publication, attacking Jewish people. So just going on to the henryford.org, which actually covers this, surprisingly. So in January 1919, Henry Ford began the publication of the Dearborn Independent, a small financially troubled community weekly he had purchased the previous year, carrying the subtitle The Chronicler of the Neglected Truth. The paper primarily served as a forum for Henry Ford's views. Each issue of the Independent carried Mr. Ford's own page, an editorial expressing his opinions, written by William J. Cameron. The Dearborn Independent would most likely have remained a sidebar in Ford's biography were it not for the controversial series that began on March 22nd, 1920 and lasted for several years. Appearing on the front page every week, The International Jew, the World's Problem, examined a purported conspiracy launched by Jewish groups to achieve world domination. The basis of the articles was an ancient and notorious forgery, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, an anti-Semitic hoax first published in Russia in 1903. And just to note, this work is the basis for a lot of the anti-Semitism you found in the time, including with the Nazis. So it goes on to say, Ford's own attitudes towards Jews were the major reason for the publication of The International Jew. His anti-Semitic beliefs formed along several strands from his upbringing, attitudes and personal beliefs. They were also influenced by current populist political sensibilities that advocated a distrust of financiers, bankers and institutions of economic power. A common stereotype at the time led some people to assume that Jews controlled the international banking system, that belief may have fed his anti-Jewish feelings. His crusade against World War I convinced him that the international Jewish bankers were fomenting the war. Here again, the stereotype noted above may have convinced him that international Jewish bankers supported the war for personal gain. Again, a popular anti-Semitic conspiracy theory believed by people like the Nazis. Lastly, Ford's growing cultural conservatism, anti-urbanism and nostalgia for the rural past formed an important third strand. Ford saw Jews present in everything that he viewed as modern and distasteful: contemporary music, movies, theatre, new dress styles, and loosening social mores. And of course, all this stuff is the belief in cultural Marxism. So it comes as no surprise that Henry Ford believed in the war and Christmas. So Politico wrote a good article summing up the war and Christmas, but it started with this, which is interesting. So Henry Ford was an avid proponent of the idea that someone, or more precisely some group, was waging a war on Christmas. Last Christmas, most people had a hard time finding Christmas cards that indicated that in any way that Christmas commemorated someone's birth, of course referencing Jesus there. According to the International Jew, the world's foremost problem, a widely distributed set of anti-Semitic articles published in the magazine, people sometimes ask why 3 million Jews can control the affairs of 100 million Americans in the same way that 10 Jewish students can abolish the mention of Christmas and Easter out of schools containing 3,000 Christian pupils. So that is sort of the start of the notion of the war on Christmas. Politico's article actually goes to talk about the John Birch Society, which rears its ugly head. So in 1959, the John Birch Society published a pamphlet alerting the nation to an assault on Christmas carried out by UN fanatics. What they want to put over on the American people is simply this: department stores throughout the country are to utilise UN symbols and emblems as Christmas decorations. So that is the very racist origins of the war on Christmas, and we're going to tie it all back to white nationalism and racism. But let's go into the Fox News angle, which preyed upon, I guess, the sentiment that America was leaving the white Christians behind, and the popular misconception in America and the popular myth that white Christians in America are actually oppressed, despite, being the majority of people in government, running the White House right now, running the Senate. Even most Democratic politicians are white Christians, so it's not exclusive to the Republican Party. But let's go into the origins of the modern war on Christmas. So the modern American war on Christmas began pretty much 10 years ago. Fox News host Bill O'Reilly recalled earlier this month in a conversation with Sarah Palin, it was sparked in part by major corporations that ordered their employees not to say Merry Christmas. And remember, they freaked out about things like Starbucks cups and everything like that. It was actually on December 7th, 2004 that the O'Reilly Factor first aired a segment on Christians under siege, and in so doing appears to have launched the war on Christmas as we know it. All over the country, Christmas is taking flack, O'Reilly told viewers, deploying a fittingly martial metaphor. In Denver this past weekend, no religious floats were permitted in the holiday parade there. In New York City, Mayor Bloomberg unveiled the holiday tree, and no Christian Christmas symbols are allowed in public schools. Federated department stores, that's Macy's, have done away with the Christmas greeting, Merry Christmas. So he went on to say, secular progressives realise that America as it is now will never approve of gay marriage, partial birth abortion, euthanasia, legalised drugs, income redistribution through taxation, and many other progressive visions because of religious opposition. But if the secularists can destroy religion in the public arena, the brave new progressive world is a possibility, and that's what happened in Canada. So the Politico article goes on to say, the war on Christmas then became an all-American staple of the 24-hour news cycle, a gift to the busy news producers trying to fill the airwaves. As O'Reilly's message carried into the 2005 holiday season, political life began to imitate TV art. Jerry Falwell's Liberty Council and the Alliance Defense Fund pledged to fight restrictions on Christmas goodwill, and the American Family Association called for a boycott of Target because it was alleged the company did not use the word Christmas in advertisements. So tying it back to the racist angle, of course, when you're talking about things like Christmas and how Christmas is being eroded, you can focus on the secularists like O'Reilly did. A lot of people also focused on the people in America who were not Christian. So on Christmas 2004, Pat Robertson said, go to Saudi Arabia, let them go to Pakistan, yeah, they can go to Sudan and find a wonderful Muslim holiday. And O'Reilly told a Jewish person who called into his radio show that if you have a problem with Christmas, you got to go to Israel. When Jon Stewart started criticising it, a blogger called Peter Brimlau said Stewart's comments were mostly an irrelevant but uninhibited expression of Jewish alienation and Christophobia. So all that stuff was back in the good old 2000s, but of course the war on Christmas still lingers on. The war on Christmas's ghost haunts Europe, it haunts America, and it's been taken up by the white nationalists under Donald Trump and the far-right Republicans, and it's basically playing into the same tropes. But what is more disturbing, as white supremacy in America and outward white supremacy has become more normalised in politics with people like Donald Trump, and a lot of the people he's inspired, it has taken on an explicitly racist tone compared to maybe the 2000s, where you can play it off as a war against secularism and atheism. So Salon did a good article where they spoke with a University of Oregon sociologist called Randall Blazak, and when talking about how it relates to white supremacy, he said, with Trump, there is a normalization of white supremacist rhetoric. Merry Christmas in the right-wing context on the supposed war on Christmas is a pushback against multiculturalism. Trump voters and other conservatives who respond to that language believe it is a political statement to say Merry Christmas because they feel their country and everything sacred about it is being taken away. The people who cling to the war on Christmas talking point do not have the skills to manage social change in a way that would actually make their lives better. And that's an interesting point. So of course Donald Trump sort of harkens back to this 1950s America where the white man dominated everything. Of course that time has long since gone, but as more progressive elements get more visible, older white people, people about Donald Trump's age, feel more alienated. So you whip them up into a frenzy. You whip them up with white nationalism, but this war on Christmas becomes part of that. It's like saying, you can't say Merry Christmas anymore, or the radical left will attack you. You can't say Merry Christmas anymore, or you'll get in trouble with something. And companies can't say it because they're pandering, or companies can't say it because they're frightened to express their Christian values. Of course, one of the key founding principles of America is the separation between church and state. But obviously Republicans never respect that and they don't like that. So to your average Republican voter who believes in this war on Christmas stuff, they feel personally attacked, and it's designed to make them feel alienated and oppressed, to make them vote in a certain way. Of course, white Christians in America, as I've mentioned before, aren't oppressed, but when you whip them up into a frenzy about all this stuff, they start to believe it, and that shows how effective things like Fox News are at pushing this propaganda, where you make the most privileged group in America, the group that control most of the power, you make them feel like they're oppressed. And then you have things like religious freedom bills, which aren't actually about religious freedom or freedom from religion. It's about the freedom to discriminate based on your religion, which isn't actually religious freedom, because then a lot of people who aren't religious can't escape your religious beliefs. So while we might find the war on Christmas silly, and it is pretty stupid, I'm not going to lie, the whole use of the Christian element of Christmas and weaponizing that to sort of say to people, look how much your country is changing, look at all the leftists, look at all the diverse groups taking away your power and attacking you, soon it will be illegal to be Christian or some rubbish like that. It does actually work, especially when you're spewing this garbage from every news outlet in a local area, from every radio show. And imagine growing up in that environment where that is all you hear, that is all your family watch and listen to, that's all your friends watch and listen to. How do you even escape that? It is very, very effective brainwashing. And I've always said with a lot of things like this, especially in the UK as well, a lot of conservative voters and a lot of Republican voters, especially working class ones who are voting against their interests, often don't have a choice. You grow up in a very rural area maybe that is all white, all conservative, and like I said, you all listen to the same stuff. Your schools aren't good, or they're dominated by religious people, so your education isn't good. You can't develop critical thinking. There isn't really hope for much people to break out of that, and critical thinking is a very key skill. But under capitalism, it's designed to not be taught, because then you wouldn't continually vote against your own interests, and you would realise the people oppressing you are not, secularists, atheists, people who are diverse, who probably are more similar to you than you'd like to believe. It's the people in power who pretend to be defending you over stupid issues like this, other issues that Christians love, like abortion, and maybe to a lesser extent the Second Amendment, while robbing you blind on the economic issues. And although I don't see this as a key issue for white nationalists, it's clear it's just part of a broader sentiment about, white genocide, cultural Marxism, and all that crap going back to the days of Henry Ford and what he wrote in his anti-Semitic column. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like the video, maybe subscribe to the channel, maybe share. If you want to follow me on social media, at the Kavernacle on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to support me financially, my Patreon is also in the description. Join my Discord, join my subreddit, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.